What is up, guys, and welcome to the video. So today we're going to be looking at Arcane Mage and going into a full in-depth guide of basically everything you need to know to get started. We're going to be covering macros, stat priorities, talent setups you can go with, and a few other things I want to throw in there. So let's jump right into the action. So first here, I want to go over the stat priority. Now the basic gist of it is, and obviously this is kind of for open world because you can't really control how much of each stat you have in instance PvP. But basically, I'd go with haste, then versatility, then critical strike, and then mastery. Haste has always been king for arcane. You need those quick casts to go off. You need that haste to get those polymorphs down. Reduce time. Get it if you ever have to hard cast an arcane blast, get that down below 2 seconds or something like that. And it's just going to make you that much more deadly and way more powerful utility wise. From there, I like to go with versatility, and the main reason for this is not only is it point for point, it'll give you more damage output than mastery or crit. It'll also give you that just passive shield wall. In open world PvP where everybody's getting one shot and just pumping out the damage, if you have somewhere between 7 to 10% damage reduction, that is really going to add up in the amount of basically tankiness that you have, and it'll save your life in a few occasions. I know it saved mine, but it's just really handy to have that little bit of edge on the other guy along with the strong paired burst that you already have. From there, I like to go with critical strike, simply because I still like it over mastery. Mastery right now is kind of garbage. Like, considering that the 23% you see there, it's not the damage boost that you used to get. That's the mana regeneration, and in open world PvP, never are going to you're never going to be able to rely on the regeneration of mana that you get through mastery. Like, it's just so little. So having stacking it up and getting that little bit extra of mana regen, it's just not worth it. And the damage alone from it, the damage bonus, it's basically half of that. So I don't know, point for point, like if you compare crit to mastery, if I had like 20% crit bonus, I would be spending the same amount of stats in mastery. I would only get about maybe, I don't know, 12 to 13% damage boost compared to 20% crit. So I just favor crit a lot more, and also because one of our talents, Aegwyn's Intensity, which increases the critical strike chance of arcane missiles by 12%, and they just pair together really well. So I like to have a healthy amount of crit, so that when I get that 12%, I get to stay in the mid 30s to high 30% crit chance on my arcane missiles, and it's just kind of a raw damage boost there. So next year we're going to be going over the kind of basic setup for Arcane Mage and talents. It's, Arcane Mage, the thing I like about it is we do have some variation of talents that we can go with, but if you want just kind of the basic cookie cutter setup, we'll go over that real quick here just so you can see it. But first we get Amplification, then we go with Shimmer, Incanter's Flow, Charged Up, Chrono Shift, Erosion, then Arcane Orb. And on the honor talent side, we go with Glaire's Medallion, the basic 2-minute trinket, Mind Quickness, Netherwind Armor, Temporal Shield, Torment to the Weak, and Mass Invisibility. So next, I kind of want to cover the talents in each tier and kind of why I do and don't pick them, or if they are viable and if they're not. So first off, here we got Amplification. It's just really powerful, seeing as Arcane Missiles is your really hard-hitting truck hitter, just spell destroyer, person, cleaver, whatever you want to call it. It basically is what's going to be getting you those hard burst kills in your burst and keeping your damage somewhat consistent outside of burst. Words of Power, I used to try it out if I was like in a strap for missile procs. Like, they can be, you can get dry spells and have really bad RNG like with missile procs, so I used to use this to try and counteract it. But in the end, I still like Amplification more, and Arcane Familiar isn't really viable in a normal situation, in just your overall everyday Arcane Mage PvP situation, but if you really want to, it can be used in kind of a hard burst setup, but we'll talk about that later. So Shimmer has pretty much become a staple of Arcane Mage. It's really hard to play an Arcane Mage without it, honestly. It does have the weakness where you can't blink out of stuns, but it keeps you so mobile, and, it's such a strong defensive and offensive talent. It's just so much more worth it more than the other two, because Mana Shield is just kind of clunky. You gotta spam that Prismatic Barrier to get really a lot of use out of it, and that shuts down your damage overall by a ton. Um, you know, Same with Slipstream. It's kind of basically like Shimmer split in half. Like, you got the defensive talent here and the offensive talent here. And Shimmer's kind of the best of both of those. The only thing you gain with these is the stun break. So I still like to go with Shimmer for that main reason. Slipstream can be kind of fun to use in battlegrounds or certain situations. I'd use that more over than Mana Shield, but Shimmer is definitely your overall. But if you're not getting used to it, and you still like regular blink, just go with Slipstream. So next to here, we got a bit of options. Encounter Flow is going to be your basic one overall. It just, has really good damage output, is nice for overall damage, and, you'll get the kind of best DPS from it. And most importantly, it keeps you mobile, unlike this talent, Rune of Power. Rune of Power does have its place. It can be really powerful, but the only thing I hate about it is, in a general situation, it kind of defeats the purpose of, or it kind of shuts down the main utility of Arcane, and that is being mobile. Being mobile is kind of your bread and butter. It's what makes you outside of burst, and it just helps you really bridge that gap between your burst windows and just stay alive a lot more. So when you're using Rune of Power, it's purely for burst purposes. It can be used, but we'll kind of go over that in a different talent setup here in a second. Mirror images, I'm finding is a really good alternative. If you like just, that fantasy of having mirror images, or, flashback to the days of having a baseline, I definitely miss those days, and I really like to use mirror image if it were just a lot more viable. But the main situation I use these in would be like duels, maybe battlegrounds. It'd be pretty fun to use just as an extra cooldown if you wouldn't mind a little bit of damage loss. But mirror images is a decent, alternative if you just really want to commit to that spell and don't want to go with the cash flow. The only reason in arenas that it'd be kind of sketchy is if you're going with CC. And line sign is a lot more big of a problem in arenas, so they can be easily lined. But in like duels and open world, it'd probably be worked out a lot better. Next here, I like to go with Charged Up when running by myself, mainly because, Resonance, I'm not really going to be casting 4-stack Arcane Barrages that much, so the damage from it overall isn't as worth it to me as the utility of just having Arcane Charges, 4 Arcane Charges sitting at the palm of my fingers. Basically, the reason I go with this is I like to pair it up with Chrono Shift because, like, say I'm, Arcane Explosion a couple times, just kiting out a target. Say I get a couple missile stacks here, and I send an Arcane Barrage on the target. I have an instant slow on them, and I have the chance to get another, Arcane Missile proc from that barrage instead of applying a slow to the target. So I just like it a lot more for that. Supernova's pretty much been crap, unfortunately, ever since WoD ended. It's got the single charge, and its damage was kind of nerfed and doesn't hit that hard in PvP. I think main target, it hits for regularly basically 180k. It scales down in PvP, but it gets that 100% damage increase on the primary target, so that's why in that situation it equals about 180k, which just isn't worth it. 180k damage every 25 seconds isn't that much. So next we got Chrono Shift. I like Chrono Shift just for the pure mobility. You know makes your mobility that much better. In an open world, in battlegrounds, and 2v2 arenas, they'll be really strong. But in certain situations, you can go with Ring of Frost. It's kind of the alternative. In 3v3s, it can work out really well. You can go with that a lot more if you're not really going to be able to kite as much, or if you just want that extra CC. Ring of Frost is a perfectly viable talent. Ice Ward is kind of the gimpy talent. Like, you can pick it up, but honestly, it's not going to be good as Chrono Shift, and it's kind of the worst talent to go with. I'm not saying it's undoable, but you're definitely going to be hindering yourself and doing yourself more of a favor if you can just learn to use Chrono Shift more. And next we got erosion. Erosion, obviously, for the main reason it's really nice in arenas for the fact that it's the only one that doesn't break your polymorph CC. Like unstable magic, if you cast it arcane blast on target and unstable magic procs and it explodes, it'll break any polymorph or other CCs in the area that break easily. Another temp is kind of the same thing. It's basically more unreliable for that situation because it's going to be spamming every second. So anytime somebody gets a poly on their teammate or something, and you have another Tempest on them, they can just run to them, break the poly, and call it good. But erosion is nice for the fact that it's decent damage output from the if you can keep your stacks up on the target. And yeah, but Nether Tempest, I do want to explain, can be a alright choice for just raw output damage. Having that extra dot. The only thing I hate about it is like overall, I usually only go with it when I'm facing like a stealth class in a 1v1 or something like that. It's really nice to have that extra dot. But other than that, the main problem with it is, while Nether Tempest is up, it does keep the other target in combat for this whole duration, but also keeps you in combat. So it makes going for resets or eating cakes just that much more difficult. So lastly here we got the final tier. I go with Arcane Orb as kind of the default pick, especially after Overpowered got nerfed after its initial buff release. But Arcane Orb is just really nice for overall more, arcane charge control. It's nice not always having to spam your arcane explosion to rely on getting procs or procs or charges. And Arcane Orb is really good for obviously not fishing just for stacks, but it can get you a lot of missile procs too. Uh, as I say that, history targets and get one, but I've sent Arcane Orb into groups of people, 3 or 4 people, and easy it can be obviously 2 arcane missile stacks or maybe even 3, and that's just really strong pressure from that, and it just pairs really well, synergizes with arcane really good. But another talent you can go with in arena is overpowered. Basically, it's just for that hard one shot. You're going to be losing a lot of damage overall, but if you're basically spamming Arcane Explosion 90% of the time in Arena and your overall damage doesn't matter as much, you can go with it just to use that, Arcane Explosion to fish for stacks, and then when your Arcane Power comes off cooldown, you'll just be that much more stronger. And don't be fooled by the tooltip here. It does say reduces mana cost by 60%, increase damage by 60%. The managed cost reduction is true in PvP, but in instance PvP, it's a 45% damage boost instead of a 60. So it's basically a 15% damage boost off of your original arcane power. Okay, guys, now we get to that later part of the video here and the different talent setups that we can go with. So the first one I want to go over with is just kind of the random burst setup. It's not really going for overpowered burst, but it's going for more the randomness of your burst and kind of kill potential outside of your burst. So what we'll be going with here is Rune of Power, Overpowered, and Time Anomaly. Now with these talents kind of combine or sync up to Time Anomaly, it has obviously the chance to proc your arcane power randomly, and when you take Overpowered, it really makes it that much more worth it. And add that with Rune of Power, and you're going to be having like a lot of burst potential outside your normal cooldowns. And the thing I like about this is actually I can use this setup from the other day as a perfect example. The problem with Arcane is your cooldowns are kind of, people can't expect them coming after a certain amount of time, and if you can't always get a good CC chain or some, relying on getting some strong CC chain on the enemy target, which can be hard after, a little while when they learn your setups and learn what you're going to do. This gives you kill potential outside your burst to make them basically blow through their defensives a little bit easier. That way you have your full burst when you need to, with without their basically defensives up. So the other day I was facing a Shadow Priest and a Resto Druid in the Dalaran sewers, and I was playing Arcane Mage Holy Pally. And the problem I was facing was every time I burst on this Shadow Priest, he would just disperse it. It was on pretty much the same cooldown as Arcane Power. And anytime I was trying to split up the burst, like just do a Mark of Lunath with a few missile stacks and Presence of Mind, like most of the time he could line of sight it, he'd come a little close here and there, but the Druid would just pop Overgrowth and pop that small defensive, and I wouldn't really be able to get the kill on them hardly ever. So the solution with this I found is, if I'm getting those random arcane charge procs and lay down a rune of power, I can do some serious damage outside of my burst to make them think that I'm going hard on them, and then he'll waste his cooldown. So eventually I did get a good proc, got an arcane power proc with overpowered while I had a couple missile stacks because I've just been kind of building those up, waiting for the right opportunity to get a proc to burst. And basically, I laid down a rune of power, unload on him, and he dispersed. And the druid, he popped defensives, accordingly. He popped his Iron Bark with Overgrowth, and he thought he was in the clear for another minute and a half because that's basically what has been going on for the match for the past like 5 or 6 minutes or however long we've been playing. I would burst, he would defend, and vice versa. But with this, I got a kill opportunity because they popped their defensives without me actually using my on-use burst. So, it basically disrupts the chain. It's dropping a big stone in the pond of basically the rotation of cooldowns that they think is going on. So now I have pretty much all the time in the world to get a good setup, and players generally play more relaxed, or they're not as worried about maybe shapeshift into every single polymorph if they know my burst is down. Like, they're thinking, yeah, this guy has no arcane power or anything. He doesn't really have much kill potential, so they can play a little bit laid back and just focus on going all in. And that's when you catch them. You get a couple missile stacks, catch them when they're pushing in a little bit too far, playing too aggressive. Get some CG chain, pop your Mark of Lunath on the target, and just go ham. And they're going to have no defensives to counteract, and the druid's going to have kind of a no shit moment while you're just wailing on his partner. And it's just nice for that because it disrupts the pattern of burst defensive. It kind of throws a stick in a loop. And this can be a really fun spec for BGs if you're just kind of roaming around. It definitely is worthwhile trying out here and there if you get the time. So the third talent setup I want to kind of go over with you guys is more of a dueling setup. I've used this a lot, like if I'm in 1v1, 5v5s, or doing stuff like that. And that'll be basically stick with Amplification and Shimmer, but we're going with Mirror Images, Arcane Orb, and Nether Tempest, and default Torment of the Week setup on this side, everything kind of normal here. Basically, Mirror Images and Nether Tempest are going to be your highest damage output in a short amount of time. Nether Tempest is going to give you more damage overall than Erosion, and if you're not worried about breaking CC, it's going to kind of be your best setup for just going pure damage. Mirror Images, like I said, they're really strong. They are. I mean, they're kind of watered down from what they used to be because they're not baseline anymore, but they still have really good damage output. So, I mean, taking mirror images, having that extra cooldown, and just Nether Tempest for overall damage, it can make you really powerful. And if you get somebody kind of out in the open where they shouldn't be and just in a 1v1 situation, you can really melt somebody with this if you have like a missile proc lined up, or even just popping your burst with this. Like, it's not going to one-shot them, but it's going to wear them down really fast. Like, it's not going to chunk away their health 30% at a time. It's going to be like 30 hits of 5% health chunks within a matter of seconds. And it does really add up overall. Once those arcane blasts from the mirror images start hitting after a while, they're going to really feel it. And it just has ridiculous damage output. So the last talent setup I kind of want to go over with you guys is just the hard burst setup. Now this setup is basically, you're going for the hard one shot. It just kind of what you want to do in a BG, go and one shot somebody and then kind of fall back, wait for Zerker and do it all again. But basically with this talent setup, on the first tier, you can either go with Arcane Familiar or keep Amplification. As personal preference here, Arcane Familiar will be increasing your Mark of Lunath damage, or Amplification if you just really like missiles. It's kind of general preference here, but both work out really well. Next we go with Rune of Power, obviously, got Overpowered, Torment of the Weak, and here I personally like to go with Initiation, but I've seen other mages run Train of Thought. Train of Thought can be really strong if you get that really good opener. You go into your regular invisibility, cast Mark of Lunath on a target, and then cast your second mass invisibility, and you'll lay down your Rune of Power, do charged up, get your arcane power rolling, and then do that hard cast arcane blast. It is really nice with that 15% damage increase, but overall I just like initiation better, just because Train of Thought can just be broken so easily, and it screwed me over so many times when I'd really wish I just picked up Initiation and just gun those 2 arcane blast crits off the bat, and it really does help in that burst factor a lot more. And yeah, next we just kind of stick with the basic setup here, keep mass invisibility and torment of the weak. This is where concentrate power, if you really want to play, can come into play. Because the problem with Torment of the Weak on this one-shot burst, if you cast Mark of Luneth and you do slow, you gotta wait that one global before you can go into your mass invisibility. And it's up to you if you know who you're facing. If you're really worried about them getting that one dot off in the time that you cast your Mark of Luneth on them, you can go with concentrated power just for that really clean setup, and you don't have to worry about slowing the target. But otherwise, Torment of the Weak is just really good for battlegrounds. You shouldn't have to really worry about somebody singling you out if you're in invisibility and coming out into the battle fresh.
Okay guys, so next here I want to talk about macros, and one thing I want to throw out there is my macros. I found that kind of the way that I do things are a little bit different from other players, but I found some that use a similar strategy, but it mainly only affects you in arenas. Like a lot of people always have the focus, one enemy or arena enemy 1, 2, and 3 for like their polymorphic counterspell, but I just don't use those. I have 3 separate keybinds that focus each enemy in the arena, and then I just have main target spells and then focus target spells. And if I need to focus poly somebody else in the arena, I just quickly put them on focus with my keybind and then cast a poly. But I just like this method more because it's easily transitionable into like battlegrounds and open world PvP. I just have a focus macro that I use, and it's just a lot smoother, and I don't have to change out keybinds every other time that often. So it's just the way I play it. I feel like each player can be different with what they prefer, but this is what I go with. So, but let's start off simple. First macro here, we got the arcane one-shot macro. It's really simple. It's just casting arcane power and doing your on-use trinket if you have one. For me, I use slot 14 right here, so anytime I cast arcane power, the trinket will go along with it and put it on cooldown. Next here we get the ice block macro. Now in ice block, the only thing I really like to add to this, just because I was terrible at using it when I needed to, was health stone. I would always be forgetting to use my health stone half the time, so it just kind of a easy reminder for me. Kind of a lazy mode, but it was a handy little macro that it's like all of a sudden I'll ice block in a battleground and forget I have a health stone and see my health pop up like 30%. I'm like, oh sweet. So just a little convenience macro. Next here we have the 2 counterspell macros, and this is my focus counterspell macro and my main target counterspell. But the only difference is I only ever use the focus or the main target one if like I have a focus target. Like if I don't have any focus target and I just target this dummy right here and I press this macro, it'll still just counterspell that target. But if I have another person on focus and I need to counterspell this first one here, that's when the second macro comes into place. But it's just the only thing I really add to it is the cancel or ice block and the stop casting part to it. So this way if I'm mid cast or anything like that and I need to just get an easy counter spell out, my spell, or I can't even talk straight, my counter spell will stop casting me and then do the counter spell right away after it. So that's where that really comes in handy. And also if I'm sitting in an ice block and I need to come out of it to like interrupt them right away, then that'll do that for me too, all in one button. So next here we have my focus macro. Now this one has been kind of new to me, but it's been really handy. Like I only started using it a lot in Legion here after I made it, and it's just a simple mouse over macro for focus. Like I used to have a keybound to focus if I targeted him, and if I wanted to put him on focus, I'd have to target him, push Shift B, and then go back to him. But now with this macro, I have it keybound up in the corner here. I can just hover my mouse over, put him on focus, and still keep my main target. And this is really handy because I mean half the time, if a lot of people have target on, so you can see when somebody targets you. If I never target them, they think they're going to be getting the jump on me, so they'll not worry about juking their first cast or whatever, and it's basically a real easy kick at that point. What else do we got here? I think we got the polymorph one. This is kind of like the counter spell, or that's a wrong one there. This is like an arena enemy one. I had it, but I never really used it. But yeah, this is just a basic polymorph on focus target macro. Nothing special about it. That's about all that's in there. And for main target poly, I don't even have a macro. I just use the basic spell. Okay. And next here we got the focus slow macro. Now this one, I don't know how many people out there actually use it or not, but it is really handy. And I mean, I've almost considered making a focus barrage macro, but I've never really had a situation where I needed to. So I mean, I just kind of don't bother to make that kind of macro to keep my keybinds cleared up a little bit and not have to worry about one extra button or learning one extra button. So I just use focus slow here. Basic little handy macro. It it's the more you can do without having to click is the better. That's kind of the goal you're aiming for, and that just adds to that a little bit. Now here we got my utility macro, and its title is stop casting. Basically what it does is it's a stop casting macro, it's a cancel aura for ice block macro, and it used to be a cancel aura for temporal shield, back when you could cancel temp shield and gain the heal from it early on. But you can't do that anymore, so I just kind of delete a letter off of it to disable that portion of it. And actually, I forgot to. I wanted to add a canceler for Pyroblast on this. After I did those Fire Mage duels, I figured it'd be really handy to get a canceler macroed into this just so I could dispel those pyros that I spell steal. So, but yeah, I'll put that on the screen. So if you guys want to add it, you can, and if not, it's no big deal. So lastly here, what we have is spell steal focus macro, and it's the same as same idea as focus slow. It's just one less target you have to click, and it's just really handy. So I actually have a cancel aura hand of sacrifice on there from back when you could seal hand of sac. It was pretty handy back in that day. But I don't need it anymore. But I just leave it in it for reminiscent reasons. So, but but yeah, that's it. That's all my macros. Not really a whole lot. I mean, the only ones that I really use all the time are focus poly, counterspell, and focus slow. It's like you don't really need the arcane power one in battlegrounds. You just need that for open world most of the time. And half the time I saw my trinkets out, so I don't always need that. Use 14 on it. And focus spell steal is more of a rare, rare occasion, but it's nice to have when you do need it. So next here on the list, I wanted to include talk about the legendaries and kind of which ones you want to go for and which are best for world PvP. Now, as you all may know, kind of the OP ones are Killjane's Burning Wish, for just that offensive, really strong on-demand burst, and Believier's Final Stand for that overpowered defensive. Basically, the kind of combination you want to go for in these is actually like as much defensive as you can, because in open world PvP, like having damage isn't really a problem unless you're facing up against a tank maybe, but at that point you just got to have enough gear to put out enough raw damage, and that's what you're going to be relying on. So most of the time in world PvP you want to stack as many defensives as you can, because kind of like it was back in Mists of Pandaria, it was always the player who had the most resilience or the most offensives over stacking PvP power who would always be the one winning, because I mean they still got enough damage and they're not really getting hindered by the other opponent's defenses. So Believier's Final Stand and Pride as are the two best legendaries to go for in open world. I mean you're going to have an insane amount of survivability with it, and it at that point you're going to survive so long, it doesn't matter if you don't have the best burst in the world, you're going to be living long enough to just kind of whittle them down if need be. And I mean, with those two combined with your prismatic barrier, shimmer, displacement, greater invis, stacking all those together, you're going to be a really tough target to kill unless a lot of people get up on you, or somebody just blows all their cooldowns while you have no shields up for the time being, and just a hard stun. But from there, your offensive legendaries are going to be listed from Killjane's Burning Wish, Soul of the Archmage, and Sephuz's Secret. All the other ones, they don't really matter as much in world PvP. The only one that might do a little bit extra good for you would be Gravity Spiral for the extra evocation, and Shoulder Piece for the Arcane Orb Chance and Arcane Barrage. But from there, you generally want to go with Killjane's Burning Wish, just a really strong offensive. Soul of the Archmage, it'll give you that extra, just kind of consistent damage. You will be spamming Arcane Blast with it, but it'll give you just a little bit easier time getting those out. And that haste you gain from it really does make a difference. Like, I've been once you pop Time Warp with that, if you have any other haste trinket that procs and you have this thing on, like your Arcane Blast can get down to easily like a zero point 0.7 second cast or a zero point 0.6 second cast, and that's just really strong. Even if it's just a few casts here and there, it'll make you like it's basically a burst in its own. And Cephalus' secret is just really nice for the mobility. The haste you gain from it, it is a good proc, and the speed you gain is pretty nice as well. But the only problem is like the speed you gain, it's not like you can really cast while you're running, so it's just a short burst. And I feel like Arcane Barrage with the Chrono Shift is going to give you kind of the mobility that you need already, and this will just be overkill. I mean, it'll still be nice for World PvP, but I feel like just having that on-demand haste, like not have it on an internal cooldown of 30 seconds, this is going to be pulling ahead in terms of just damage. Okay, guys. So next we're going on to kind of the spell rotation here, and obviously it's going to be changing in different situations here and there. But let's start off with kind of the basic one. If you're in 2v2 and doing like a healer DPS setup, and you're facing another healer DPS, most of the time in that situation you're going to be honestly arcane explosioning just a lot. At that point, you're really just fishing for arcane missile procs, and I don't know why I don't have barrage on my bars in the first place here. But basically, you're going to be spending up to 2 arcane explosions, maybe 3 if you really want to get a little bit extra damage out. But generally, you want to do two arcane explosions followed by a barrage, and you're going to stay like mana neutral with that. Anything beyond that, if you go to 3 stacks, you're going to get a little bit behind in mana, but it's not going to be the end of the world if you do it once or twice here and there. But honestly, this is like where your setup is. Like right now, I have 3 charges, which can be rare in certain situations. Arcane Orb is a really good fish for arcane missiles most of the time. But yeah, after you get your stacks, I mean, even if you just get 2 stacks from there, you just want to, obviously get some CC on the healer over here. But usually you'll start out with Mark of Luneth followed by slow on the target. That way the slow will stay on them. And if you decide to go in mass invis or something, you want to cast an arcane blast out of that mass invis right away, and then usually if you're in the mass invis, you can get that free arcane blast off without it being broken. But if you cast missiles in greater invis or mass invisibility, it's going to break instantly. But otherwise, you just send your missiles in right away, and then I usually follow it up with 2 palm arcane blast at the end. So we can go ahead and do that one more time, but that's basically the gist of it. In healer DPS 2s, you're not really going to be arcane blasting at low end a lot unless you're just really going for a juke. Like most of the time, if you're spamming Arcane Explosion 90% of the time and just, casting a volley here and there, generally the enemy is going to be wanting to kick a lot quicker because it's like they hardly see you casting it at all. They're going to figure you're not going to be casting much, so they kind of go for it on this one time that they do see you. So just kind of keep that in mind, but that is basically what you're going to be doing in 2s a lot. Be juking polymorphs here and there, and, Arcane you're not going to be hard casting Arcane Blast a whole lot. Like, Arcane Blast is basically the filler when you run out of missiles. And, you can burst without Arcane Missiles, although it's like, I really hate to do it in Arena. It's pretty much only, at that point, if I do it, it's just because it's such a necessity. Like, I want to hold on to my Arcane Power forever and not do anything with it. But let's go ahead and do it one more time just so you guys see. But it's not that hard, after you do it a couple times here and there, it'll be pretty much muscle memory for you. So, but cast your Mark of Luneth, put the slow on the target so that slow will stay on them for the full duration of your burst, and then just send in missiles, and at the end of the missiles, or if they get close to you, you can just do 2 palm Arcane Blast and maybe send a barrage in, and then, charge up right after that if you really want to dump some more damage and get some, just waste your mana at that point, and then you can just Evo at the very end of it. And yeah, that's basically your burst you're going for. Another key point to remember though is Evo. Like, if you're running out of mana or just dropping low just to dump mana and get free damage out, you gotta make sure you can get that Evo off. Like, keeping track of your enemy's kick, knowing when their kick's off cooldown, or even if like it's off cooldown, say you're facing against a warrior and he has his pummel, like use that evocation, but be sure to blink away like as soon as he charges on you or as soon as he like gets on top of you. Otherwise, if you get your Evo interrupted and you're sitting at like 35-40% mana, you're going to be having a rough time for the next minute. So in Battlegrounds, this rotation, obviously you're not going to be spamming Arcane Explosion as much, but you're going to be going for more just overall damage. But I still like just Arcane Explosion for at least the first 2 stacks. And from there, if you want to hardcast Arcane Blast, at that point it can be somewhat worth it. But keep in mind, Arcane Blast, like as much of its mana cost that is there, you will be getting increased chance for Arcane Missiles off of Arcane Blast. I think it's like double the chance compared to Arcane Explosion to have a missile proc off of Arcane Blast. And yeah, another thing I did want to cover though is back. I think I mentioned this when I pick up Chrono Shift, and you have charged up. Say you have like missile stacks or something like that, or you're just fishing for them. You know, you got a few going out, and it's like at this point you could send your Arcane Orb in and get full stacks, but maybe you don't feel like it. Or you don't have Arcane Orb, you can, send in the Barrage and then do a charge up instantly, and they'll have the slow on them for, a nice little bit of extra damage for those missiles that you'll pop right after you're charged up. So from there, there's only a couple things I really want to teach in this video. I feel like, at this point you have a lot of the information you really need to play Arcane, but there's a couple things I want to mention. Polymorph. Now in 2v2, if you're doing healer DPS, which most of the time you'll probably be doing that if you're trying to climb high up rating, polymorph. Now, people always kind of expect you to spam polymorph off cooldown or just get as much CC out as you can. And with Arcane, that's not generally the case. Like, Arcane is more kind of strike the iron while it's hot. So you're not going to be throwing out polys off DR, like spamming it every second just because you can. You're going to be basically building up, with your damage. You want an Arcane Explosion, fish for those missile stacks, and generally only go for the polymorphs when you have like a decent amount of damage. Because unfortunately, like spamming Arcane Blast isn't as reliable damage as having full missile stacks, especially with the proc you can get on your missiles, the rule of three. And it's just you gotta be really selective from when you polymorph your target. But there is a point, like obviously you can see here, I'm not really getting any missile stacks. Well, I got one there, but I mean my first one, it almost fell off, and I wouldn't have gotten another proc, before that ended. And I've had that happen before, where you'll get one proc in 18 seconds, and you won't see one for another 25, and you can't really stack them up any. And at that point, it's more your discretion. If you want to go for it, you don't want to hold on to your cooldowns forever, then you just gotta go for it. But yeah, other than that, be sure while you're, just kind of getting muscle memory down more than anything with using Shimmer is a really big deal for Arcane. Like, you gotta be pretty proficient with using displacement and Shimmer on a target you're casting on. Remember to turn towards them if you blink away, and just being able to do that subconsciously without even thinking about it. I know it's kind of a struggle for a few people when they first started learning Arcane. I know it was a bit of a struggle for me to just getting used to that. But it's all about the muscle memory, just kind of practicing. So, but yeah, that should be it for me, guys. Hopefully you kind of picked up the gist of Arcane from this guide. I will go into, I want to say like I'll be making other guides, kind of showing how you can do different stuff here and there, but they won't really be marked as guides. Like, it'll just, from this point on, it'll be kind of you practicing on your own, just doing self improvement, and I can kind of show you guys some tips and tricks here along the way as I release videos, which is kind of the goal. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and yeah, until next time, this is Bart out.